First of all, I'd like to say sorry. It's been way too long since my last review, so it's time for me to introduce a new brand to the channel. If you're a hardcore combat sports fan and you love the likes of Michael Bisping, the Ruotolo brothers, and especially Max Holloway, stick around because I'm going to be reviewing a pair of gloves from the brand that backs them. And if you haven't heard of Sanabul before, chances are you probably aren't the biggest combat sports fan. Sanabul have definitely made themselves a household name, at least over the last 5 to 10 years. And after reaching out to Sanabul, I was super lucky enough to get sent a pair of their Gold Strike gloves, Gold Strike shin guards, and Battle Forged Muay Thai gloves. So make sure you like and subscribe to stick around for those up and coming reviews. But today we're going to be taking a deep look at the 14-ounce Gold Strike boxing gloves, which look absolutely incredible. However, do they perform as well as they look? Starting off with the weight, these 14-ounce gloves came in at 13.6 and 13.5 respectively. Not too bad, a little bit underweight, not a big gripe in my eyes. Anything that's well below, say 1 ounce in difference doesn't bother me in the slightest. As long as they aren't too heavy, I'm not as bothered, just as long as they protect me and the other person I may be using them on. And when it comes to the profile of the Gold Strikes, they're a pretty universal, a pretty generic looking profile. Definitely a Western style boxing glove from what you can see, with a little bit more of a rounded head, being a little bit more plush on the outer side as well. And from a side profile, these bad boys do look pretty flush. The wrist strap just sits on top of the overall glove. I do like to see wrist straps that sit either just below where they're recessed or especially below the hand capsule, just so it's a little bit safer when you're sparring and doing bag work. You're not going to get scuffed with that Velcro and your strap's not going to come off as easily. And in the visuals department, again, the Gold Strikes look amazing. The all matte white leather to the gold piping, gold stitching, gold labels, everything just looks fantastic. A really nice color combo on any boxing glove. They honestly give me like a limited edition Stormtrooper type vibe from more of the techie writing. The Sanabul label, again, looks fantastic. The stitching on these gloves, however, is the real standout to me. Probably the best stitching I've seen ever in a boxing glove, except for one little area. And that little area is just where the rubber labels sit over the piping. I love this as a little detail to finesse a boxing glove. It just gives me a little bit more of nice craftsmanship feeling, but the stitching that they used to actually cover those labels was done pretty poorly. Lots of bunching up here, which is a bit of a letdown to an otherwise really well-made glove. And lastly, when it comes to craftsmanship, I love all Velcro gloves that do this, is that added piece of elastic that sits in between the palm of the glove. It just helps keep the glove opening together. When you have Velcro gloves, what you lack is that connection with all the laces pulling together. So that little bit of added elastic put on the inside, and again, inside of a boxing glove, is great for functionality, and it still looks pretty good. Now this leather is fully synthetic. It is an engineered leather with a bit, like almost feels like a grain to it. It is very almost bumpy, but also still feels quite smooth. And I know that it's durable for a fact because there's a brand here in Australia, at least one, that uses this exact material. And again, close up, it honestly does give off a leather look. So if you're none the wiser, you could honestly mistake this for a grainy, very old school type leather boxing glove. But before I go any further, if you're looking for quality fight gear at a little bit of a discount, make sure you click the link below. I've got some awesome fight gear brands including Hayabusa, Siam Kick, and even Sanabul. So if you're looking for boxing gloves, shin guards, tie shorts, etc., make sure you click that link down below and save yourself a few extra bucks. This is one way of saying thank you, to give you guys a little bit of something back for watching my content. So I hope you can get some great gear at a little bit of an added discount. And with that being said, let's get back to the review. So when it comes to the inner lining of the Gold Strikes, you've got your silky nylon or polyester blend here, super silky smooth, and definitely something you start to see more on premium type gloves that are, say, well over 100 US. And this blend, in my opinion, should be the top choice of any boxing glove brand out there. It's just too comfortable to pass up. It just hides the foams well, hides any stitching issues well. So if you have a glove that maybe has a bit of a questionable hand capsule or interior, this lining just in itself can definitely hide some of those sore spots. And because of what I've said, you can probably guess the hand for here feels pretty good. And when it comes to the width, there's plenty of room for an additional finger or two. Even in the length department, there's probably a few few mils at least for an additional finger length. So if you have a longer or larger hand, these are definitely going to suit you with a 14 or 16 ounce version. I'll leave my hand measurements in the description so that way you can check up against them as well. And on top of this, there isn't any additional awkwardness on the inside of the glove. I can't feel any awkward stitching or bunch ups when it comes to the inner lining. The only thing that is quite easily noticeable though is the thumb. It is quite tight. There is quite a lot of IMF foam on top of the thumb, and because of this leather connection here being quite tight to the glove, there's not a lot of movement. So I have been using these for a few months and that hasn't really changed. So if you need a bit more flexibility there, you just got to give it a little bit of work or start to try and break that foam down in case you want that thumb to be a little bit more flexible. One of the better things, however, when it comes to the foam blend in this is it is very easy for me to open and shut my hand. So if you're clinching, parrying with an open glove a little bit more, these will definitely tick the boxes. It doesn't feel restrictive or tight in any sense. Moving down from the hand fit to the wrist section, this is where things start to become a little bit of a mixed bag for me. Starting off with the Velcro wrist strap, as you can probably tell, the height of this wrap is noticeably shorter compared to most other boxing gloves and Thai gloves out there. Well, yes, it does look really cool. I just don't think it's doing any additional favors for your wrist support or stability. The other little negative when it comes to the wrist strap is how it's sewn onto the glove. I don't like to see boxing gloves stitched in like this. To me, it's just easier manufacturing for the craftsman, which I get, but what it means is it's a less durable product for the user, because typically what you will see with boxing gloves is the leather is pulled from the bottom palm here and it's fully attached to the leather itself, which means there's no stitching, which is going to be a weak point, and if I yank on it too hard or at an awkward angle, it's not going to tear away from the glove. So again, not the best for durability. It's okay, it's standard, but I would much prefer to see the alternative. However, there is a big plus side to this wrist section, and that has to do with wrist support and stability. They actually use that same IMF mold, I believe, below the wrist strap here, and I'm not 100% sure whether it's fully connected. What I can tell you though is when I try and pull my wrist back, there's actually a fair amount of resistance there. So it keeps my wrist in a nice neutral position. So if you stuff up a shot on the bag or on pads, this actually does a very good job of trying to not allow my wrist to come off at an awkward angle. So in regards to wrist support and stability, that's a big plus. Additionally, there is a little bit of a softer, maybe latex foam on the inside here. So even if you get a really thick wrist strap and a really tight fit, it still feels incredibly comfortable. And moving on to the palm side, there's also some really stiff blocks of foam here on both sides of the wrist. So if you're into guarding, into parrying, that's just a little bit more protection there on that inner side. And finally, when it comes to the knuckle padding on these bad boys, here's where things are either really good or maybe not so good. I am a great believer of injected molded foam being used on sparring gloves. I just believe that kind of foam is really good for the protection of the user and for the protection of the opponent. And while I use these gloves many times for both sparring and pad work, I actually found that I got the most pain in my hands while using these on bag and pads compared to pretty much any other glove that I've tried. And that's very odd for an IMF pair of gloves, because usually that's what they're designed to do, is take away a lot of that shock, a lot of that feedback, so you don't absorb as much of the blow. And let me be clear, it definitely could be because I was throwing really bad technique, I was hitting a really hard bag, or maybe I was just a little bit more injured at the time. But because I tend to cycle through my gloves quite regularly, when I do notice hand pain, I usually would consider that the glove itself to be the main contributing factor. So while I wouldn't recommend these for bag and pad work, as a sparring glove, however, I think that these are a real winner. And again, even though I complained about the knuckle padding for bag and pad work, hitting your partner definitely didn't bother me whatsoever. From attacking to defending, I feel like this glove definitely is a great option for either kickboxing, Muay Thai, or even MMA sparring. So all in all, for $99 US or 150 Aussie, I think they're priced exactly where they need to be. Again, while being very comfortable, visually appealing, and a durable outer casing, I just don't feel they tick all the boxes when it comes to a boxing glove. These should definitely be, in my opinion, marketed more as a sparring glove. I haven't tried the 12-ounce version of these gloves, which I can't comment on, but if they use the same mold here, I don't think you're going to have a much better experience at bag work or pad work either. So when it comes comes to recommendations, the only people I would say to not buy this glove are people who adore great feedback on bag and pad work, Mexican style boxing gloves, for example. If you're into that sort of thing, stay away from these. These are definitely more of a puffier, protective glove. And if you're a novice looking at a bit more of a higher budget than real cheap gloves, this could be a nice entry-level boxing glove for you. So that's it for my first Sanabul review, legends. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I would hugely appreciate it. If you have any questions regarding these gloves or any other products that I've reviewed or maybe not reviewed before, make sure you leave them down in the comments below. And if you're feeling a little bit bored and you're in the mood for more fight gear content, make sure you check out another one of my videos. Thanks again for sticking around for another video, legends. I'll see you guys real soon.